So thank you for coming this evening to the Graduate Writing Fellow Workshop. I'm going to just keep admitting people as they pop in. My name is Derek Pazalt, and I am one of the Graduate Writing Fellows with the School of Social Work.
I have my video off.
So we're going to start with a screen share of a PowerPoint and go into a question and answer period. Given that there are right now 25 participants and 46 people RSVP'd, there's going to be an opportunity to ask questions. If we don't get to your question, I'm going to type my email into the chat right now, if I can open it. There we go. So if you have a question and we do not get to it, you can email me and I will answer as best I can then. Student. Okay. In the waiting room. No, I don't want to message people in the waiting. Oh my goodness gracious. Technology, what would we do without it? All right, attempt number 2. Oh wait, it did go to everybody in the waiting room. I'll do it at the end. You know what? I'll do it at the end. All right, share screen. And again, thumbs up. Can everyone see the screen? Perfect. Thank you for the response. All right. Except it started at the last slide. Bear with me one moment. Sorry. Much better. Welcome to the Graduate Writing Fellow Workshop. Jasmine and I, Derek, have put this together to go over helpful tips, tricks, how to handle the overwhelming feeling when you first look at a syllabus. So our agenda for this evening is breaking down a syllabus and what to pay attention to most, important information assignments, semester schedule, how to organize your mind and your papers. They both have to be in sync or it just won't work. Breaking down an assignment, what to pay attention to, the important parts, and this is especially important when researching for an assignment. The worst thing is when you research the wrong part of an assignment and then you can't use that information. So this is going to save you time and frustration. Leading into that, time management, there we go. And also additional helpful tips. So breaking down the syllabus, you're going to have a lot of information. You're going to see this packet of like 10, 15, 20 pages. And some people, they panic. And you just take a deep breath and you just start reading through it. Professor's contact information, very important. If you have questions that are specific to the course or to the professor, the best person to advise you is that professor. As graduate writing fellows, we can help you with a general situation, but general assignment, questions, grammar. But if it's something like, is this an acceptable topic? Is this particular citation credible? Your professor's the only one that can truly decide that because they're the one grading you. Office hours and availability, the days the classes will be held. This can be a little tricky with holidays, so always double check. If there's a holiday in a given week, the last thing you want to do is have an absence for missing a class because they switch the day schedules. So just throwing that out there. Honor code, if you are comfortable with the honor code, that's perfectly fine. You already know it. If not, just review it. The only reason I bring that up is with issues of plagiarism and the accidental self-plagiarism has come up. You cannot cite yourself and you cannot quote yourself, and that would violate the honor code. And as always, we don't buy, borrow, or barter for papers. The books required. Most of the assignments, you can actually use your textbooks or articles assigned within the course. So those are always good to have. And of course, IT for, well, Zoom meetings, really. Let's see. All right. The core competencies. This can overwhelm people. And I explain this as this is what you're going to learn and gain proficiency in through the semester. These core competencies, you don't have to put them into an assignment. Some people will see them and try to crowbar them into an assignment, and that's more work than you need to do. So the competencies, learning contracts, those are important, especially for MSW learning contracts if you're doing your internships. But it's not part of the assignment, and some people have confused that and tried to combine them. Due dates and grade weight. Some professors will grade like 100%, 80%. Some will grade 8 points out of 10 and just add up those points for your final grade. And then some professors still start out with 100 and they subtract points. This is, again, something where you'd have to talk to the professor. If you get an assignment and it says you only got a 30, take a deep breath. You probably didn't get 30 out of 100. But I've had people, actually one woman hyperventilated, I felt so bad. Just breathe and everything's fine. The grading tools that different professors use can look scary, but everything's gonna be fine. That's one thing in graduate school, is you take a deep breath and just say everything's fine. Because, oh, we're all going through it. And of course, the assignment breakdown, which is the important part we're leading up to. So breaking down the assignment itself, very important. What is the due date? For this reason, I suggest and highly recommend that individuals print out a syllabus as well as save a copy to your computer, because due dates change and you need to be able to cross it off and keep track of that. When the due date changes, sometimes an assignment is in parts. So you might have a rough draft due on the 8th and peer editing on the 16th, and then the final draft on the 24th. Well, if the final draft got pushed back, did that affect the other dates? Things like that you would want to just double check. Well, what the formatting, if in the School of Social Work, since everyone who RSVP'd is in the School of Social Work, it is APA formatting, Times Roman font, size 12. For those who are going to see this recording later on, as always, check with your professors. Structural requirements. Is there going to be an abstract? Are you going to be using graphs and charts? Are you going to be making those graphs and charts? Because if not, you must cite where you got that information. Well, you would cite it no matter what, because you're getting the data from somewhere. But when you use a graph or chart, you have to cite it differently than if it was a different type of source, which would be part of our next workshop on APA formatting. So that'll be in a few weeks. Hope to see you there. How many pages should it be? And some people, they get nervous. In undergrad, it tends to be expanding information. In graduate school, it tends to be condensing it and being concise. So instead of spending a page to describe something, you could do it in a small paragraph, because you're using the terms that represent that knowledge. And it's showing that not only are you aware of the information, but you are able to articulate it in such a way that you can get your point across. So instead of having a 20-page paper, you're going to be having 5- and 6-page papers, and it's going to be a little difficult, but it's good practice, especially for if you're doing, say, case analysis. The number of sources and the types of sources. So it might be 6 sources have to be peer reviewed, 2 are allowed to be website. It's knowing what types are allowed in what proportions. Very important. Another thing that I always point out is not all sources are created equal. And this isn't simply peer-reviewed versus not peer-reviewed articles. This has to do with the newspapers versus other periodicals versus blogs. I remember my first year here, there was an issue where the Herald was confused with the Boston Herald, and the Herald was just the name of someone's blog that had an opinion, and they wrote about it as if it was the Boston Herald. So always check, because printed newspapers have to back up what they're saying. They don't want to be sued for libel. But a blog, it's like Facebook. They just put whatever they're thinking at that moment and say la vie. And additional helpful tips. Oh, I already said that. Printing out the syllabus and saving a copy to your computer. You know, worst case scenario, okay, the internet goes down or there's a power surge and the router got fried. You have a backup. And if you print it, you have a backup of a backup. So write down all the due dates on a calendar or planner. If you haven't already, buy a copy of the DSM and also the APA 7th edition manual. Not everyone's going to want to buy it. It's a big book that tells you a lot of things that you might not need. So there's always Purdue OWL, but that is an online source. So if you are having trouble with internet and you're relying on the internet to APA format your paper, that might be tricky at times. So consider, please, APA 7th edition manual, which you can rent. You don't have to purchase it. If you're only going to be here for a couple years, you're going to, go through the degree quickly, you can rent these books. For the calendar, let's see. Okay, let me stop share for a moment. For the calendar, I wanted to show you, if you're interested in how I set up my own, sorry, just admitting someone else, my own calendar, and just putting it out there. Nope, you don't have to use it. Let me just bring it up quick. I cannot minimize the Zoom I am recording. That is very good to know. All right, so how do I do this? I believe I click this.
You all right?
Okay, I guess I will not be showing that at this moment. If anyone's interested in the template I use as a to plan the due dates, the classes, feel free to email me and I will send it to you. See if I can put that in the chat now. In meeting. And with that, we are in the Q&A section of the presentation. If you have a question and you don't want to speak, that's perfectly fine. You can type it into the chat, but if you're comfortable speaking, if you can use one of the reaction symbols, then I can see, could I email the template? Absolutely, yes. I can email the template. So I've included my own email address. If you email me, so that way I don't have to call any one particular person out, saying you wish to have the template of the calendar, I will do that as soon as this is over. So if anyone has any questions, you can give the thumbs up, or you can do the little symbols, and or you can type it into the chat. Okay, thank you. Where'd you go? Alba, would you be willing to unmute yourself just so you could ask the question?
Hi, Derek.
Hello.
So my question is, I think I'm speaking for most of us, but we are getting a ton of reading with
Mhm.
articles and then also the book readings. So how would you go about strategizing, like, which should we prioritize? In some cases, we're not able to get to all. What would your recommendations be regarding that?
So in the past, granted it was in person, the virtual learning makes it slightly harder. We would do groups before class. And if there were 4 journals that were assigned, plus textbook, we'd do the textbook usually on our own 'cause it was so large. But each of us would read one of the articles and tell the other students in that group what the articles were about. Um, I'm a visual person, so I'd actually like have notes and I'd highlight certain things and I'd say, read these sentences in this article and it will give you the main meat of the article. And that way you could discuss it in class. Where we are going through a digital phase, because of COVID, that is slightly harder, but it's still doable. But I found that to be extremely helpful. Another thing I do, because I'm a visual, tactile person, I print out the articles. I print out a month's worth of homework at the university so I don't have to commute as much. And I write in the top corner, the right side, the class it is for, the day the reading is due, and I put them in chronological order. And that way I can pull them up and take notes. And when it comes up in class, because you don't know which reading they're going to focus on, I have it right there. Um, my last suggestion is to be honest with the professors. Um, Explain that this is very overwhelming, and could they perhaps emphasize one that is more important for the next class? It doesn't mean the readings are not important, but the one that will be most pertinent to the next class. And there's a good chance that they'll completely understand and they'll say sure, that we focus strongly on these 2 articles or focus strongly on this chapter. It never hurts to ask.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Anytime. Let me see, we've got a question here. Where do you save information as a backup? Is there a cloud attached to Blackboard? I don't know if there's a cloud attached to Blackboard itself, but there is a cloud attached to your VSU account. So when you sign into whether it's a university computer or your own computer through the BSU website, there is a cloud and it backs up your information. If you're less comfortable with the cloud, you could also do the those well, what are they called? The little stick things that you save stuff on. Flash drive, thank you. You could do flash drives. Nobody burns discs anymore, it seems. So I find that those 2 options, or if you're the type of person, or if you're like me, where you can't keep track of all of your passwords, and you're like, oh great, it's in the cloud, I can't reach it. Email papers to yourself. When in doubt, I find that that is extremely helpful because there will be multiple versions of a paper depending on where you are in the edits. And I will say policy paper 3 version 4, policy paper 3 version 6. And I know that the higher the number, the more versions there are. And then when I'm absolutely done, I'll write the word final after it. And I'll only submit the word with the paper or the document that has the word final in the name of the document. And that has kept me from making the oops of submitting the wrong version. Okay, here we have another chat one. What's the best way to go about scheduling a session with you? Oh, for one-on-one support. Well, thank you for asking. All right. The way that it works in the school social work, and this is not true of all the departments, putting it out there for those watching the recording, but for the School of Social Work, you would contact Pamela Shigell at the School of Social Work, and she has a referral form that you fill out. And it says that you're agreeing to the terms and conditions, and that really the form is more of a keeping track of who is coming in and just letting you know how the program works. And then you're assigned to a graduate writing fellow, which is me or Jasmine. And then we make an appointment and we have meetings. They can be weekly. They can be every couple of weeks. It's as much or as little as you want. I usually hold to one 45-minute appointment per week maximum, just because there are so many people that are in need of help. But that doesn't exclude you from sending drafts. So if we had an appointment, say today, and then a few days from now you've taken in what we talked about and you have a draft ready, you can email it to me or to the graduate writing fellow you're assigned to, and they can look at it still. That is separate. Oh, brilliant. Yes, let me open that up. Sorry, it was in the chat. They're wanting Pamela's email address, so bear with me. I'm going to get that right now and put it into the chat window. That is her name. So her email would be the letter P and then her last name. Oh, I sent it privately. Why is it doing this? Everyone, try that again. That is Pamela Shagel's name. So you'd have the first initial, last name at bridgewater.edu. Yes, this workshop is being recorded. I do apologize if you missed that part of it. It just, we only had half the people come in and we didn't want them to miss out on the information. But thank you for pointing that out. Thank you for those that didn't hear that part. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, anything else I can clarify?
Hi.
Hello.
Do you have any like suggestion when like we have to read ton of articles for an assignment? Like how do we know we're picking like the best ones? Like any suggestion with that?
Oh, yes. So what I've done, especially with the database for the library, when it comes to Google, or if you're looking at, say, statistics through a government website, it's not as helpful. But with the peer-reviewed articles, the first thing I do is read the conclusion, and that way it tells me the information, the results of what the article's going into, and that tells me whether or not it would be useful. I then jump to the introduction and look at that to see if they're going about it in such a way that it would be useful. And based on those two parts, I decide if to read the entire article or not. So I find that saves time, because if you look at the conclusion and the result was that they had no findings, or that that the validity of the study was not very strong, it was only applicable to white males between the ages of 14 and 18 that lived in the suburban neighborhood. Okay, that's very hard to generalize, things like that. So at the end of the articles is so much information, and I like looking at that. The other thing to bear in mind is when using the databases through the library is to make sure that your date range is within the last 10 years and that it is peer reviewed. You have to put those in yourself. Does everyone know how to do that, or do you want me to show you quickly how to do that through the library website? Thumbs up if you would like to see that. All right, then bear with me. Share screen. I apologize. You're going to see my email for a split second. Okay, let's skip that. All right. So I go to the library website. Am I clicking there? And some people prefer to limit the databases. I personally do not. I like the library to help me as much as possible. And I know that when you put in a search, as you can see, I've been doing research. When you put in a search, it'll compare it to all the databases and then I can narrow it. But if I narrow it ahead of time, I'm going to get a very tiny response. So the last one I did was social work and anger management. Enter. Okay. So if you scroll down, so I have 100 years worth of research available. Far too much. So I'm going to change it to 2010 and hit enter, and it'll refresh the screen. And I scroll down again. So this is all the research within the last 10 years. It's the most up to date. I click on peer reviewed. I have now drastically reduced the options that would normally overwhelm me. And you can do other tweaks to it to limit language or available online in print. These, if you see a PDF full available, you can click on this and immediately get the information. Other ones, it'll say full text finder or request through interlibrary loan. So in this case, if say this particular article is exactly what I need, it's not available with just a click and there you go. So you're going to click on request through interlibrary loan. When you do, it autofills in most cases these areas of information. You scroll to the bottom and hit submit request. I've did this earlier with another student to show them how, but these are two of my requested items that the librarian will actually go and find. They will send you an email when they've located it. And if you click on electronically received articles, there's one that I received on the 21st of September, it looks like. And then you just click on view and it will bring up the article that you've requested. So you're not limited just on the, let's get rid of that, just on the databases that the university pays for, and they pay a great deal in order to access these databases. They will do loans with other universities. So there's a wealth of knowledge available to you. And this is why it's also important to do your research well ahead of time, because it could take them a few days to get back to you about this article. So if you're doing your paper at the last minute, interlibrary loan is not going to be helpful. But some of the best sources I've had have come from interlibrary loans. So thank you for that question. Is there any other questions, comments, things that I can help with?
Hi, this is Tanisha. What is your advice when quoting?
When quoting?
Yes.
Can you be more specific? What are you quoting?
So when you're quoting from like an article or anything.
Okay. So it's not like in class. Okay, perfect. So one of the things I recommend, and perhaps it's a little old-fashioned, do not copy and paste. Type out a quote, because you're going to notice that there's issues with tense. So you might be writing in the present tense, but the person that you're quoting might be talking in the past. Or they might have left out a word that you'd have to do it in parentheses to add it in to make it grammatically correct. A lot of people don't realize when you copy and paste, it shows up. It can be whether it's a slightly different background around the words or the font has changed, but professors usually can tell on their screens that you copied and pasted, and it's sort of a little red flag. it also, I think, helps to digest the information, because if you are thinking about what is being said and you're typing out the quote, it's a good moment to think to yourself, can I phrase this better or just as good, just as well? Because quotes tend to be overused. I only recommend 1 or 2 quotes per paper. And some people will have a quote per page or per paragraph even. They want to, professors want you to show that you can extrapolate information and synthesize it. It's different than undergrad, where it was repeat what you've learned. This is, you're taking little bits of information from the left, from the right, from the center, and you are making your own body of work. And that is really the pinnacle of graduate writing fellow assistants. Once you can do that, you can fly on your own. That shows that you are ready to be a scholar, that you can write and do your own research and collect your own evidence. That doesn't mean that you're going to have little cages with rats or pigeons or something. It's more so you're doing your own research and you are formulating your own statements based on other people's work. Because knowledge is compounding. We are building upon the information of the past within the last 10 years. So that information is very important. One moment, sorry, there's another chat. Thank you for this. There's a chat, 4 assignments due within a week. Oh, always frustrating. I greatly sympathize. How to prioritize, or when you should start working on the assignments. That is an excellent question. So I'm torn between doing the assignment that interests you most, because it'll help you gain momentum to do other assignments. When you start on an assignment either you're not comfortable with or you're not thrilled with, you drag. But it's also important to know what your knowledge is and your comfort level is with the topic and the material. So say you have an assignment on narrative therapy that has not been covered in class, it has not been brought up yet. I would not necessarily start that assignment. So it's also building on your comfort level and your knowledge base. That doesn't mean you can't start research now. Even if you're not writing the assignments, looking at the government websites, getting familiar with the topics, in particular if it's a disenfranchised group, if it is policies, those sort of things. Even learning how to navigate the websites is very important. So I would start out baby steps, perhaps, if it's very overwhelming, and ease your way into it. But it sets you up for success if you either pick the assignment, if they're all due at the same time, pick the assignment you're most comfortable with or the one you're most enthusiastic with. Either way, you're setting yourself up for success. When you are using information from an article, how would you cite it when you're not using direct quotes? Oh, excellent question. So you cite it the exact same way, really. It just without a page number. Any information that was not an epiphany out of your own brain, you must be cited. If it comes from somewhere else, it must be cited. So trying to think of what a paper I was reading recently. So someone was talking about, it was discrimination against immigrants. And they brought up information about policies in the last 4 years under President Trump. And I said, this is great, but you need to cite it. And they said, well, where do I get this information? I said, it's all over the place, really. As long as you get the approval from your professor, I wouldn't use WikiLeaks or something, but you could do a newspaper, you could do a website that's credited, but what type of source you use should be approved by your professor. But you have to show where the information came from. You have to back it up, even if it's something that is in the news constantly. As that particular topic was, they said, well, it's just self-evident. I said, no, even that you have to back up if it's something you heard. On average, how long before a paper is due would you recommend starting? That's a tough one. It depends on the paper, and it depends on how long it is. The literature review for policy, that was, I think I had 18 or 19 sources. I started working on that well over a month before it was due, because I had to read all those sources, take notes on them, and then write about it and then double check it. For on average, though, I research an assignment for a week. I'll focus on reading about it for a week, and then I'll devote 1 week to writing about it. That doesn't mean that I spend 24/7 doing that. It's the gap of time I set aside to self self-assign. So if I know I need these 10 articles, I will give myself a week to read them. If I get them all done in a day, then great, I can move on to the next part. But I give myself time because life comes up. And the last thing you want is to have a mountain of research you need to do and still write about it with only a few days left, and it's your kid's birthday. And it's a holiday coming up, so the library's closed on Monday. And you got called into work early, you have to stay late. I mean, life does come up, so we definitely have to prepare ourselves for that. So I always give myself extra time. So yeah, if it's an average assignment, I start at least 2 weeks out. I saw someone with the hand emoji. Where was it though? Was it you, Alba?
Yeah, that was me. Whoops. Sorry. So yeah, that was me. My question is, so I am doing a similar like social problem, social topic for two of my classes.
Mhm.
Can I use one article for both classes?
Oh, your source information can be the
Yes.
same. Actually,
Okay.
some professors prefer it, others don't. Again, it depends on the professor. One in particular was very interesting. They said, do not reinvent the wheel. We don't want, you can't plagiarize yourself. You can't submit a paper twice,
Okay.
but you can keep the reference information. And I've done this before where I've written it, and I used one of those big alligator clips and I put all my references behind it, so that the next semester it turned out this topic came up again. I was able to look through my references and find the article that was useful and apply a different part of that article to another paper. So if nothing else, when you get done with a semester or an assignment, do not delete it. Do not, I mean, it might feel good. Put it through a paper shredder if you must, but save the original document, because that reference list will save you so much time. Because again, it's compounding information, and you are growing as a person as you are gaining knowledge. And you can see where your writing style is improved, and you can track by looking at your old articles where you might have used language differently. So I know that's not the same as the source information, but I do find that part fascinating. Culturally sensitive, culturally humble language is something that is coming up more and more. And I think that that's going to be a very big part of this coming year for a lot of people. But when it comes to the sources, yes, you can reuse source information. You can, you think, yes, you can reuse an interview, I believe, yes. Because you're not citing yourself, you're citing the person that's telling you the information. So even interviews you can use again. Let me see. Oh, yes, okay. Any other questions? Anything else I can help with?
One more, I guess.
Okay.
So I've been out of school for quite some time, and I'm a little nervous when it comes to like writing a paper in APA format, to be quite honest. I know that you said there's the APA book that we should utilize, or also the other website,
Purdue Owl.
Purdue Owl. Any other recommendations when writing a paper that we should, of any resources that we should use in terms of like the, not the research, but the paper itself?
Honestly, and again, this made it was easier when it was in-person classes. Network with fellow students. Other people are experiencing the same fear or the same hesitancy, but everyone has different strengths. One of my first classes, I went in there with a bunch of candy bars, and I'm like, who wants to trade papers with me? I got sugar, I got incentives. Don't be afraid to talk to other people and trade papers, because someone might know APA formatting when it comes to their references really well. And you might be really knowledgeable about the cover page or about the headers, and you'll catch it. If you don't notice it, someone else will. So I recommend sharing your information and proofreading each other's papers, because there's only a couple graduate writing fellows, but don't forget, you are a resource to other people as well. There's a reason you're in this program. I mean, you've come so far already. You're intelligent, hardworking individuals, and don't discount yourself. So yeah.
Thank
I
you.
just had a question.
Yes.
When you went onto the library website and it said find texter for like one of the articles, if you find an article that's interesting, how do you go further with that?
Oh, let me share again, and let's try that. Nope, wrong button. I think it's this one. Share screen. Okay. There we go. All right, might have to start that over again. Okay, there we go. So, can everyone see it? Just making sure. Perfect. All right. Okay, I'm okay. There we go. So request through interlibrary loan. So it just adds an extra step. So you're going to request through interlibrary loan, click that button, and again, it will fill the fields, but this might not automatically happen. You might have to bounce back and forth in order to get this information. And you once again scroll down and hit submit. I'm gonna have to figure out how to cancel these requests later. And then once you get an email, it might take an hour, it might take a day. You go down the line to electronically received articles, because for a while I was getting these and I couldn't figure out how to actually get to them. So this part is important. And then you're going to click view, and that will bring up the particular article. Once you're done with it, you can delete it over there. No, I don't want to pause the recording. There we go. Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Quick question. This is Tanisha.
Hello.
Is that only done when when it needs to be requested? Do you have access to the other articles when they're PDF forms, like when that pops out?
Yes, yes, you do. You would just click on the button of HTML or PDF, and it will come up immediately on your screen. That is not an issue at all. You would just click it and it would be available instantaneously. This was for those articles that are not available immediately, that have to be borrowed from other universities and colleges' databases.
I had just one more question.
Absolutely.
I know how you were saying like try to get like ahead of the papers ahead of time, but what if like the professors don't go over it till like a week or two before all the papers are due? Because that's overwhelming me.
I can understand that feeling. Yes. Can you? I'm trying to think. It'd be easier if I knew the exact, or it's a small. If that were the case, it would not be a huge assignment. It would not be a literature review. So let's go with, it's a 6 to 8 page paper. Let's just assume. seeing that it is on the syllabus, whether or not the professors go over it, you can do show initiative, and you could go ahead and start researching, and you can ask them questions. They might say, we'll cover it in class later, and put it off, and that's their prerogative. But if it sets your mind at ease, it doesn't hurt to do a little bit of digging on your own into the topics. So you might not know about the theories. You might not know about the exact format of the paper, but if you know that it has to do with Erickson's stages of development, you can start looking at that information. You can also, though admittedly it is asking you to do more reading, you could skim ahead. I'm not saying to skip through the syllabus. That wouldn't be right. But you can skim ahead to see when those topics are going to be covered in class. That might ease your anxiety, and it might prepare you a little bit mentally to handle the situation. When it comes to really, you're stuck in neutral. Your engine's revving, you want to start doing this paper. But what I've come to realize, at least for myself personally, is I might be frustrated that I can't start the research, but the information leading up to it is just as important. And it might be that they need to start a little further back, and that's why they aren't covering that information yet. So I can understand where it would be frustrating, though, and it'd make you nervous. I completely get that. When in doubt, you could also talk to the professor and explain that you are feeling this way, and can they give it any advice? And a lot of times they'll open up and they'll be like, no, I totally get it, and if it's an issue, we can work on it together with understanding the topic, or if you're having trouble finding reference material, many professors will help you if you come to them well ahead of time. But it's tricky. It's a balancing act. You don't want to jump too far ahead and do research you won't use, because that wastes time and energy, but you don't want to wait till the last minute. So there's not one right answer, but I would recommend communicating with the professor and talk to the fellow students, because you wouldn't be the only one with that feeling. If that helps, I hope it helps.
Thank you, it did.
Okay. Let's see. We have about 5 minutes left. Is there any other question that anyone would like to pose? Again, you can email me if you have something you don't want to talk about in the recording. I completely understand.
I have just one more.
Okay.
So I know how you were explaining like how you can just look at the syllabus and see what they are expecting and get ahead of your research, but I just find it hard. Like, I don't want to do a bunch of research if I don't know what my topic is and the professor hasn't even given you your topic yet. So that's even harder.
I see now what you're saying. Okay,
yeah.
Yes, that would be incredibly difficult. If it is something where you're being assigned a particular town or a particular population, you really do have to wait, I think, until you get your assigned focus, I guess. There's got to be another segment of it. If nothing else, if you can't research your particular topic, familiarize yourself with the databases, with the websites, because that will make it faster. If you know that it's policy, but you don't know which policy yet, look at the government website and become familiar with how to search for a policy. If you know you're going to need statistics, if you take the time to navigate the websites now, it'll be much faster when you do know what you're looking for, because you'll have already done it once. I found that to be very helpful. I don't know if that is what you're looking for, though.
That helped. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to put my email one more time. Hopefully it goes to the right place. And if there's any other questions, that's not how you spell student, or anything, if you want the link to the calendar template, I'd be happy to send that out as well. And
I have a question.
absolutely.
I was actually playing around with the library email because I completely forgot about the library option. But what would be the because I was trying my email, which I thought that would be the username. Is that what I would use for username, my email, and then the password would be whatever I created to get in?
I think it's the same as my BSU. Admittedly, I set mine up 2 years ago, but I believe it is the same as my BSU. So it should, if you can get into my BSU in Blackboard, when you click on the library, it should let you in as well. You might have to sign in again with those same credentials, but it should work.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
Oh, and someone has asked about the APA workshop. It will be, I think, the 2nd or 3rd week of October. We're just finalizing the flyer. Actually, we're working on it tonight. So that will be sent out in email form throughout the university and definitely the MSW program, probably in the next few days. But yes, that will be then. If you have any particular questions, Purdue OWL, that's something else to point out. Purdue OWL has both 6th and 7th edition on it. Make sure you're looking at the correct edition, because not all schools have switched to 7th edition. So I had one student where they were looking at the wrong edition. So definitely make sure it's the 7th edition on Purdue OWL. Just set yourself up there for success. All right. Looks like we're almost out of time. I want to thank everyone who came, and thank you for your time. And when in doubt, if you feel extremely stressed, take a deep breath, stretch, and remember that you are doing everything you can in this moment with COVID, with school, with family. You are doing such an amazing thing right now, and you are stronger than you think and stronger than you know. And we are all here to support each other. So we're going to do this. Okay? Thank you so much. I hope you have a good night.
Thank you, Derek. You were great.
Thank you.